Hey, thanks for checking back with us for episode 3 of Mountain Movers. I am John Zwart, a marketing director, and I'll be with my co host again, Brett Bauz, who is the president of WKW Associates. Today we have with us Karl Bauz, who is one of the founders of WKW Associates. He is the K in WKW, and I'll have him tell that story in just a moment. But today, what you'll hear from Karl is how he even got into the telecom industry, his journey in leaving a very secure, well-paying job and took a calculated risk and helped co-found a rep company like WKW Associates, which is one of the leading rep companies in this massive telecom industry. So I hope you enjoy Karl's story, and for a small podcast channel like this, whatever you could do to help us out, like it, subscribe to the channel, and if you could share this with someone you think would find this interesting, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. All right, episode 3. So why don't you tell us your journey and just how you got into the telecommunications industry?
Well, started pretty much out of high school. I was one of those guys that probably should have gone to college full time, didn't like school, did some part time, and was going to get married as we did it at a young age. I was 21, and my future father-in-law got me an appointment to go take the test for Bella, Pennsylvania, and took the test, passed the test. Took me 18 months to get in, and started at the bottom. I started as a splicer's helper out of Levittown, PA, and then kind of worked my way up through the craft. I was a lineman and a service tech, and then into management after about 12 years, about 5 years as a first level with a bunch of different hats. And then I made a second level manager up out of Allentown, PA. Took over the contract service group after that, and started a centralized fiber group, and then went out on staff doing product selection and technical evaluation for outside plant products. So that was about a 29-year ride, I guess.
And so after 29 years, the way I remember the story is that you were on a boat on a conference call. Don't tell anybody about that, but
Too late for that.
yeah. And your boss asked you, basically said, if you'd like to potentially be considered for an upcoming RIF, right, a reduction in force, that go ahead and give me a quick call and let me know if you're interested. And that was kind of the start. But I think what we want to know. Obviously, we all want to hear fishing stories, but what we also would like to know is what gave you the faith to make a jump, to leave? I'm assuming at that point Verizon was probably a Fortune 500 company, management, good salary, good benefits. Nobody was pushing you to leave. What gave you the confidence and the faith to know that was the time to, throw a little bit of caution to the wind and move into the direction of becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I think in my head, with about 24 years service, I left just short of 29. I pretty much made up my mind when I went into product selection that I was going to try to exit at 30 years. And I did it at 29. I was 49 years old. And yeah, you're right. I left a very good paying job, didn't have to leave. But, I had pretty much had that 29, 30 year time frame of corporate America and wanted to go try to do something by myself. So I had probably 2 or 3 offers to take a national sales position, or go into business with some guys as a manufacturer's rep, and that's what I chose to do. I took the rep path, and so I left in the end of November in 2001, right after 9/11, and the RIF. We were kind of surprised the RIF went off because of I guess, the visibility and what message did that send that the communication largest communication company, or one of, was going to lay people off, right after that. And they wrestled with that for a while, but it was a lot of staff type positions, and they decided they were going to go ahead and do it. And so after a couple of months of consternation, because in my head I already left, and so right around Thanksgiving, that was that. And then, I decided that I was going to take this position and as a partner, and over the next 6 months or so, I kind of fell into that role, and then kind of the rest is history. So that was the end of 2001, and here we are in 23, and it's been a very interesting and fun journey.
And WKW is obviously 3 initials, right? It's yourself and your 2 original business partners who were in business together prior to you
Correct.
coming over. A little bit about Bill and Walt and that what that relationship was like and what that meant as far as this opportunity for you.
Yeah, so Bill Fair, he spent time in the craft. He was in fleet, and then basically was on staff doing product selection as well. I think he left in '89 and started from scratch. Started the rep firm, and met Walt Buren, and Walt dealt more in the cable TV side of the business, and so the two of them kind of got together and decided that they would form a partnership and move forward. So when I left, I became partners with Bill, and after about 6 months or so, we had some conversation, and it was W and W, and we dissolved that and created WKW.
And so from the perspective of Bill starting his business, truly a bootstrapping effort, right? Like literally driving garage to garage with manufacturers, and some of whom we still rep today. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. It was, I've heard the stories, and it had to be very difficult, because when he started, there was no income at all. And I think he said the first check he got was from William Frick, when they had to change the logo when the company name changed on the payphones. So that was one of his first wins. And when I met Bill and Walt, I guess we probably had 6 or 7 companies that they were representing, and we built that from that 6 or 7 up to between 15 and 20, which in the telecom rep side, that's a lot of companies. Not so much in the power utility space, but on the telecom side, that is. And telecom has always been, and is not any longer. It's kind of grown into a much bigger presence, but it was a mom and pop kind of a situation. There were husband and wives, and a couple of guys that retired that started these rep companies, and they had 2, 3 lines, 4 lines maybe. So it was different.
And you were able to experience a decent amount of quick success, right? Bill, it took a little while to get going as far as him getting those companies work, because it was really just Bill, right?
Right.
You guys brought on a couple pioneers, right? A couple guys that were retired. But tell us a little bit about what were some of the key factors of why you feel like WKW became successful, whether it was internal to who you were as a group of 3 owners, or was it the circumstances of the telecom market in that era?
Yeah, so I think
both.
Bill was successful in his own right. He had some companies that were his under what then was Protel, and then Walt and Bill started this the other company, and between the two of them, they did quite well, especially as basically a one-man band kind of a thing. Walt had some separate things, and again they combined, and just started pushing forward. And when I sat down with Bill and I saw what the opportunity was, I thought, this is almost a no-brainer for me. Now, when I got ready to leave, to the person, they came up, and when people questioned me, why are you leaving? Why would you leave a very good paying job with security? And I mean, I had the conversation with my wife, your mother, and you and your sister were pretty much done school and almost self-sufficient, and yeah. So, but that's another story for another podcast. So it was just time, and I knew what I was making, and I knew what I thought I could make out of the gate, and I had that conversation with my wife Sharon and just said, "Hey, worst that can happen here is I go find another job, but I'm ready for a change." And I knew I had that conversation with my boss, Ray Klaus, who was the director at the time, and I had 24 years, and they were going to put me in a very difficult job in order to possibly get that next jump to director. And I said to Ray, "Well, you're going to guarantee me that, right?" And he said, "Well, I can't do that." I said, "Well, then I think I'm going to go and take this staff job." And I just knew at that point, I was in that job for 5.5 years, I think, and I just knew my next jump was going to be to go out either on my own, start my own rep company, go with somebody, or take a position with another company. And I chose not to do that because that would have been jumping, out of the pot and into the fire, and because it would have been the same thing on a smaller scale probably. And I was at somebody else's mercy. I knew that if I did this, and there would be some ups and downs, but it really was my success was predicated on how hard I worked. So that was
the risk you were willing to take.
Yeah. It was time. It was kind of what I told people about retiring after, and I talked to many, and I said, you'll know whether you're going to go do something else, whether you're just going to retire and go down and live at your beach house, but you'll know.
So a lot of times, we'll be talking to a lot of different people that have taken risks and, I don't know, have had to take that leap of faith, so to speak. But it sounds like it's really a combination of a bunch of things, right? For you, it was the stage of life that you were in, right? If it was 10 years prior to that, and your kids are in middle school, that's a really hard, probably a harder decision to make.
Yeah, there was no decision that could be made in my mind. How do you walk away from a good paying job? And I knew that when I went in. Most people went to work for the phone company, and whether that was Bell, Pennsylvania, Bell Atlantic, Verizon, or whoever you worked for, and you were there the rest of your life. So you knew you were, you had a 25, 35-year career. And there was nowhere to jump. And I think I always had that in me, but never had the opportunity. So when this job, the position opened to on the product selection side on staff, I knew that I could probably take that and just go through that, learn, build those relationships. I already knew pretty much from from a field perspective, how to build it, how to put it together. So I had all that knowledge going in. And I came off of staff. So when you're on staff, it's a very interesting position because everybody wants to see it. All the manufacturers, you're the guy that makes those decisions to either approve it or not approve it or allow them to get in the bidding process. And it was kind of a rock star position. And then, once you leave there, you jump the fence, it's a whole different situation. So now you're a sales guy coming in and calling on the staff guy. So that was a transition for me. Yeah. That was a little difficult. It took me a long time to stop saying we when I spoke about Verizon. So it was pretty much a lifelong, journey with that company, and I have no regrets. It was great for me. I learned a lot, and again, never really went to did the 4-year stint. It was kind of, as they say, the college of hard knocks. So, it was the ups and downs of that.
So, a trait often, with people that are mountain movers, I would say a trait would be just never feeling satisfied or just getting complacent with where you're at. Like you said, you could have, right? You could have, you had a good paying job, security, but what sets some people apart from others is understanding your situation, the market situation, your knowledge and partner's knowledge, right? And taking that step and understanding, hey, there's an opportunity here. Yes, it is a risk, but it's sort of a safe risk.
It's calculated.
Calculated. Yeah. It's not just, some people can go out there and take this crazy leap and there could be some epic failure. But this seems like a very calculated risk. But at the same time, taking that risk, understanding that it is a risk, but it's a no-brainer. Like
it was
said.
for me.
Yeah,
it was for me. It was something. Again, I think it was inside of me. I just never had an opportunity to bring it out. There was never. I mean, if you did a good job, you worked hard, you got your bonus, but you never had that opportunity to grab that brass ring. And again, this whole thing was predicated on how hard you want to work. Now, again, knowledge, relationships, knowing the manufacturers, certainly helped. And I wasn't the only one to do that. There have been others since and before me. But, we just, Bill and I sat down and we had a plan to bring on some folks and get away from that mom and pop mentality and bring some pioneers on. And we would pay them on a daily rate and gave them, just some territories and said, hey, go, and it was, we were successful with it. And I think the manufacturers appreciated the additional effort because in the rep business, the manufacturers always question how much of your mind share are they getting. And you need to make sure that
rightfully so, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they're all writing checks at the end of every month. Well, speaking of the model you went with, which was partners and then transitioning into pioneers, guys going out and helping support, create a bit of a sales team, it certainly has changed from there to where we are today. Significantly. And not with every rep firm. I'm not saying that the industry has made a full shift to the way we do it, but it is a shift that we've made, WKW has made. And before we get into, maybe what your thoughts are on today's model and how we got from A to B, any speed bumps, any bumps in the road that you've hit? Again, we talk about mountain movers as people who truly can figure out ways to navigate around or over mountains or flat out move them out of their way. Anything that you can think of from an entrepreneur, a business owner that you would identify as a bump in your road that helped you grow through the process?
I think probably the most significant piece was the partnership itself. And my partners were about 10, 11 years older than I was. And trying to figure out when that right time would be, when they wanted to leave. And, I kid Bill, when I came in, he said, I only want to stay another year. And we were up in Rhode Island going to visit a manufacturer, and he said, I know I told you I only want to stay another year, but I like to stay on. I said, hey, that's fine with me. And I mean, today Bill still works for us. He's not a partner any longer, but he still goes out and calls on garages, and he has his customers, and keeps him busy at 80. I think Bill's 82 years old. And Walt left the business and went out on his own. And I think if he hasn't retired, he's just about ready to go.
So from a learning moment, call it, it was really the navigating the partnership and ultimately the departure of that partnership at some point, which I'm sure came with its own share of headaches.
Yeah, I've said many times it takes a contract that you can pull off the internet and a couple of signatures to create a partnership. It's not that easy to dissolve that partnership or try to figure out how we do that. At that point, in order to figure out how to do this, we had an attorney, and 27 pages and $17,000 later, we wound up figuring out how to do this separation and do it, the right way.
And in a good way.
In a good way.
I mean, Bill and Walt were
absolutely.
Ready. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, it was just a change. And I guess that was 2012. And then you came in, and, and Bill knew that was going to happen. And then from there, we just kind of put our heads together and, what's the best path going forward? And, we have changed our model significantly, and added, at one point, I think we had 2 or 3 or 4 pioneers, and what do we have now? 18 people?
Yeah, between pioneers and
full-time employees, and have diversified in what we do, and I think from a personal standpoint, if I go back and I just take a look at this philosophically, and what I did, once you make one move like that, it's easier to do another.
Another.
Another. And I mean, we laugh. It's 2012, we found this property, and I was going to build a house up here. And 60 years old, I decided I was going to start raising cattle. So right. I'm going to be a beef guy, right? So we did that, and some real estate investments, and some other things that we did. A marina in New Jersey, which, we knew there was going to be an end game, and we're working on that as well. So I don't know what's next, but me personally, it's something that helps me get up, makes me get up in the morning. If I wasn't doing anything, I don't know how that would go, but I don't think it would go very well. I just had to be busy. And I firmly believe you have to keep your head in the game and your mind sharp. And, in order to do that, you take these risks and you do things that, probably 90% of the population doesn't have an opportunity to do. So I'm very fortunate, very blessed that, I feel that I am where I am, and we've been doing this for 22 years. So,
yep, quite a ride.
It has been.
So, for listeners who are thinking, "Wow, you've been presented with all of these entrepreneurial opportunities. Where do I start? How do I know we've talked about, obviously personally, about college, right? That was important for you and I, or for me anyway. That was always just part of the plan. Right. For some kids, it's not a part of the plan. For yourself, it really was an experience, right? You put yourself into a position. Well, Pop-Up helped guide you into that position of,
Right.
of the telephone company, because that was probably never part of your plan growing up.
No.
I want to work for the phone company.
No.
But you've brought a few different things together, which I always go back to the whole hard work and an opportunity. Put them together, and you'll get, luck will come, right? Good fortune will come. I know that there's a fancy cliche, and I'm blanking on exactly what it is, but I think success comes when hard work meets opportunity. Right. And the skill set that you gained, for those who say, yeah, I really want to start my own business, I'm just not quite sure where to go. It really came because of the experience you had,
Right.
and the position you were placed in. It's not always all about coming up with that one phenomenal idea that, Google's going to buy off of you, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's just good old hard work and timing.
Yeah, the Flugelbinder in Cocktail, the movie,
Right.
right? It's looking for that one thing that's going to make you millions of dollars. I used what I learned. I used my knowledge of telecom, again, from the ground up. And it was an easy decision for me. I can't tell you that I would have made a jump and bought another business that I knew nothing about. And that was the other piece, that when you talk to people, it's like, stay in your lane and do what you know. Even since then, and getting into some other things, it's you question yourself a little bit. You say, what do I know about that? So
The marine is a perfect example.
yeah,
Right?
it is. I mean, I know boats. I've been running boats since I was a kid, and loved to fish, and we tournament fished, and did all kinds of things on the water with boats. So, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the back room, from trying to run a service business, storage business, and having boats in the water, and the everything that goes with that, insurance and fuel, and EPA and DEP and all the other stuff. So it's that's a learning process, but it was one I was willing to take. So it was just something that I always wanted to try to do. So I was fortunate enough to find somebody that wanted to go into business, and we did. So we ran it. I guess that's 2019, and we are
23.
We are. We've got a couple different parcels and a couple different plans, and looking to develop. With a local builder, and the other piece trying to sell the marina piece to someone at this point, and then off to the next adventure. I don't know what that's going to be, but we'll see.
Well, do you want to ask the final question?
What's that? Oh,
The standard?
yeah. Well, I guess if your marina restaurant was finished and you had your liquor license, who would you want to have a drink with?
Wow.
Yeah.
Dead or alive?
Dead
present
or
day,
alive,
present
yeah.
day, non-present day. Who would you like to sit down and have a drink
Give
with?
me a little heads up on this.
Yeah, see, there's no fun in that.
I know.
If you listened to the full podcast
the-
last time,
see the
he would have known
process.
what was coming.
I think I may have listened to that at the end, but I didn't know I was
Yeah,
going
with
to get the
Chris.
same
Yeah.
question.
His was that was a good answer.
I
pressure.
think that's pretty easy. Yeah, that would be my dad and my mom. Right? My dad loved the shore, loved boats, loved the water, was in the Navy. It would have been nothing would have been cooler than being able to stand on the deck and have a cocktail with him.
I was just recently reading, or I heard something that the quote went something like, "Life begins and ends with family," right? And there's a lot of people you run into throughout your life, you build relationships with, but to your point, your answer was family, and there's just it's just a reminder that no matter how busy we are, no matter how many opportunities we have, right, family is so important. So
Yeah, and from my perspective, the torch is being passed, and I always felt that this was kind of my legacy, and Brett is is pretty much quarterbacking what goes on the WKW side. My daughter Carly is involved now on the Comtech side, which is our non-Verizon company, and my son-in-law Mike is dealing on that side with the non-Verizon telecom folks, as well as contractors and distributors. So, I feel very fortunate, again, very fortunate, very blessed that, we could put this together the way we did. And, hopefully things continue on for, a long time till you and your sister and Mike decide that maybe you want to pass that off or hang them up.
It certainly opened up a ton of opportunities. I mean, I think about the things, a family business. That's a whole entity we really didn't dive into today. But wow, the opportunities. We've been to Ireland a dozen times together. We've played Pebble Beach a couple times together. Traveled, you can almost say traveled the world together because the business brought us together. And man, I think we're both pretty fortunate that we've been given this opportunity.
Agreed. It's been awesome.
Well, Karl, thanks for telling or sharing your story with us. I'm sure we'll have you back on again at some point in the future. And stay tuned for our next one. We have, who is it? We have on the docket.
I think we're going to keep it a secret, just in case we have to shuffle the order a little bit. But we've got a good lineup coming, and with our event coming up in June, we're certainly going to run through quite a few interviews here and get some people on the show. So we're looking forward to that.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.